Hey everyone, this is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Dr. Benjamin Alter. Dr. Benjamin is doing some incredible work, so I'm excited to have him on to share a story with you guys. If you've been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnsson. You can also check out my website at drcaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, be sure to check out the Shop tab where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series. Thank you again for listening. I hope this episode leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. Now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Dr. Benjamin Alter. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I'm Dr. Casey and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Dr. Benjamin Alter. And Dr. Benjamin is a plant-based naturopathic doctor who is doing an incredible job at educating people how to increase their body's innate healing abilities. I'm excited for Dr. Benjamin to share his own personal story and just everything that he's been working on. So, Dr. Benjamin, thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm excited to have you.
Dr. Casey, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to share a little bit with you and have this conversation.
Yeah. So before we get into everything that you're working on right now, let's start with your backstory. What did your own personal health and wellness journey look like for you, as well as what experiences did you have that made you want to become a physician?
Yeah, well, I think every physician does have that sort of connection with their own health and inspiration. And I would say that it definitely started for me back in, I think I was in 7th or 8th grade when I was a skateboarder in middle school and I broke my wrist. And I was really active and always, falling down and breaking bones. But this time, my broken wrist, I went to the ER and saw an orthopedic surgeon who took his big hands around my wrist and squeezed really hard and reduced the fracture. And it was, excruciatingly painful. Wasn't on any pain medicines or anything like that. But he had just had such a joyful presence and it looked like he totally loved what he was doing. And I thought, wow, he really helped me. And I feel like I could, enjoy my life while supporting others as well. So from that point forward, I was really inspired by the mechanics of the body and really took advantage of any opportunity to shadow any physician. Went into the operating room a lot as a high schooler, before there were so many different HIPAA regulations and whatnot. And I was really, like I said, really inspired to go into the field of medicine, specifically into the field of surgery and, orthopedics, because of my experience. And I really had a narrow-minded focus on that route. And it wasn't until my final year of college, I was studying undergrad, pre-med physiology, exercise physiology stuff at the University of Arizona. And ironically, I had another accident that threw me over the handlebars of my mountain bike, and I broke my other wrist. This time it was my thumb joint, my trapezium bone, which was the bone that articulates with the thumb. And I went to another orthopedist, and this time I had to have surgery with some pins. And my surgeon, did a fantastic job at pinning things together, and I healed up real great. But we did have a visit where he told me, Benjamin, maybe down the line in your 30s or something like that, you'll probably develop some arthritis early on in your life. So, just for your information. And I thought, wait a second, I want to use my hands, but, I want to be a surgeon like you, that really just kind of threw me for a loop. And I was like, first of all, am I going to be able to do this? And second of all, do I really, really deep down inside actually want to pursue this route of, conventional medicine and this vision that I narrow-mindedly had for myself? And to back up just a little bit, when I did break my right hand flying over my bicycle handlebars, I had always been so right-handed and left-brained, analytical, scientifically oriented. And literally, when I flew over the handlebars, broke my right hand, I had this like awakening kind of experience where when I went home and started using my left hand for things, I was struggling at feeding myself and brushing my teeth and all the things. But meanwhile, I felt my right brain, my creative potential kind of turn on. And I had this experience of really just kind of balancing into myself. And from that point, I felt really inspired to pursue all sorts of other creative endeavors that took me off to complete tangents away from my narrow-minded focus to become a doctor. So fast forward, 10, 15 years or whatever, and I lived abroad and studied spiritual psychology, got a master's degree in spiritual psychology, and, became a yogi, and was meditating profusely, and just kind of on all these kind of inner journeys with myself in the healing process. And through that, I really started developing awareness, an experience of the mind-body connection. And then I thought, wow, this is really what I want to do. I want to support people in the holistic sense. So like I said, fast forward, went on to start naturopathic medical school, and here we are. There's obviously a lot of things to fill in the gaps, but that brings you up to speed.
Yeah, no, I think that's super interesting. And I love that detail, the story of you had to use your left hand and it really activated the opposite side of your brain, because I think a lot of people overthink that and they don't think that that's simple. But I mean, whenever you incorporate other things with your left hand, you can really activate more of your brain. So I know people that like purposely will brush their teeth with the opposite hand every day, or there's just some task that they purposely do on a day in, day out basis because they know the benefits of that. I mean, that's very cool that you saw the benefits of that pretty quickly, right?
Totally. I was, as I said, I was totally forced into it. This was not an elective sort of thing,
right?
But it would be, thinking back on it, it would be smart to continue using my left hand more nowadays to kind of maintain that sort of balance. But then again, I feel like once we see, this is kind of broadly, applicable throughout our lives. Once we experience something or see something or feel something that's true for ourselves, we can't undo that. So, these sort of healing experiences and, awakening, enlightening, whatever you want to call it, once they happen, we leap up in our level of consciousness and understanding and perspective. And then we naturally stay there or, leap up again. We don't go backwards. And despite how it might seem along our healing, growing, learning journey of life.
So with your route of becoming a naturopathic doctor, obviously that wasn't the initial game plan for you. So with you, after you decided, that interest started to develop, like you said, you were doing a lot of the yoga, a lot of meditation, a lot of the mindset work. That's when you decided, hey, I'm more into working with the body as opposed to trying to use outside sources. You know what I mean? Did it happen pretty quickly, or did you just start exploring other avenues other than surgery?
Well, I had an opportunity to move abroad. I was living in Hungary working on some research projects. And when I was abroad, I had this kind of mind-body experience. I don't know how else to put it, but we could get into that if you want. But anyways, when I was living abroad, I was getting sick a lot. I would travel a lot, and every time I came back to my hometown, which was a small city in Hungary in Eastern Europe, every time I would come home, I would come down violently ill with stomach flu symptoms, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, extreme fatigue. I thought it was, some sort of foodborne pathogen or drinking water thing. But it turned out I was really just homesick and really feeling out of my elements and out of touch with myself and off my path. And anyways, I just realized that. And that's when I kind of started to sit myself down and calm myself down and reassure myself that, hey, like, this is temporary. I can do this. And from that point forward, I was completely energized, no longer experiencing any sort of symptoms. So when I came back, I, still wanted to go down the field of conventional medicine because, to be honest with you, that's the only path to becoming a physician that I saw and I was familiar with at that point in my life. And I decided, I was studying for the MCAT and applying to medical and stuff, but I decided to fill in this additional gap year with a program in spiritual psychology. And in that program, one of my classmates was actually a naturopathic physician. And she just kind of pointed me in that direction and said, for your consideration, this might feel better. It might feel more aligned with who you are and what you want to do. So there's many paths to become a holistic health practitioner. And this is just the one that showed up in front of me.
That's amazing. And whenever you were doing the research in Hungary, was it more holistic based, or what type of research were you doing there?
I was actually studying the genetics of brain cancer. So definitely not. It was very.
That's super interesting, though. So what, like telomeres, or like what were you really diving?
We were just literally focusing in on a couple different genes and studying in this institution that I was working with. They had some advanced technology that allowed us to use immunofluorescence to look at different genes. It was very, very narrow-minded, reductionistic sort of thing. So it is kind of silly and interesting and ironic that, I've totally blown from the gene out. And I was never really authentically inspired by genetics or anything like that, to be honest. It was just an opportunity to, it was a kind of a contract thing to work for a year, on this project. So it was never my passion.
It's a stepping stone, though,
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's super interesting. So once your friend directed you in that path, like, where did you go from there? What were the next steps?
Yeah. So the next steps was, well, that sounds good, but I'm still applying some conventional medical programs. I had, studied for the MCAT, took the MCAT, and really decided that, hey, I'm just going to apply to the University of Arizona, where that's where I was from. That's where I went to undergrad. That's, where I had the highest chance of getting in. And my application was, pretty strong and everything, but I was not accepted. And when I wasn't accepted, there was this initial shock, like, what the heck? How could that happen? I was fairly confident in everything. And then it was just like the immediate next second, it was like, well, clearly that is not for me. So I had this I was at the fork in the road and there was a road closed sign going down that way. So I was like, well, of course, I'm just going to go that way. So the following year, applied to the naturopathic program in Portland, Oregon, it was National College of Natural Medicine. Now it's National University of Natural Medicine. There's, six different accredited naturopathic medical programs in the country. So that's just one of them, the oldest one over there in Portland, Oregon. So that's where I went.
That's cool. It was a good experience?
Yeah, it was great. Led me to meet my wife, Dr. Susanna Alter now.
That's awesome.
And yeah, we're, best friends, business partners, and totally aligned in everything that we do. So I'm pretty sure that's the reason why I went to school in Portland, was to meet Susanna.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm sure your naturopathic training was just incredibly interesting. I mean, what were some of the topics that you were learning about that kind of just blew your mind, especially at first? Because I'm sure a lot of it was so new, but just so life-changing. Like, were there certain topics in particular that really made it for you, like just took that training to the next level?
Well, to be honest, I was pretty unenthused, uninspired by the curriculum in general. The first 2 years of the program are pretty much, actually, they have since changed the curriculum, I should say. So not to totally bash on the school or anything, it's a great institution, but the first 2 years were pretty much just like any other medical professional program,
Gotcha.
Anatomy, physiology, pathology, biochemistry, just like
stuff to make you pass boards, right?
Yeah, the nuts and bolts. And but I should say that, what really sets the naturopathic profession apart is it speaks to an underlying principle of nature, which is invariably true, which we all know, but it really embraces that and focuses on the fact that the body really, truly, 100% is healing itself. And it's the practitioner's responsibility to understand how to optimize that healing process. And as we know, it doesn't come from outside sources. It doesn't come from supplements or pharmaceuticals or vitamins or anything like that. It doesn't even come from food. What it comes from is the inherent wisdom of the body to do what it does best. And we can use all of these tools to optimize that process.
Absolutely. I mean, our bodies, they're so incredibly smart, and we don't give our bodies enough credit. I mean, the innate intelligence of our body, you just got to think about it. If anybody wants to argue like your body doesn't heal itself, it's like, easiest example, Dr. Ben, you're shaving this morning, right? You're shaving your face, you cut yourself. It's going to bleed, it's going to clot, it's going to heal, right? Like, we see healing of our body every single day, and it can do it on every level, but we're just constantly interfering, whether it's toxicities that we're putting in our body or toxic thoughts or just toxic actions, whether we're just harming our bodies in different ways or not moving enough. Our bodies want to heal themselves, but we are just constantly interfering with that.
Some of the oldest naturopathic health practitioners, physicians, were practicing what they called hygiene medicine, which, we use the term hygiene to talk about cleanliness and taking a shower and washing your hands. But really, what they were doing was supporting people in creating and maintaining an environment that allowed the body to heal itself. And I think that for many decades, we need to know that it really has only been decades, not like it hasn't been 1,000 years or even 100 years, but just decades. The medical profession, the medical establishment, this huge industry has totally shifted from healing to disease. And in most medical programs, they don't talk about healing. They don't use the word healing. They don't even use the word health. They use the various diagnoses and pathologies and symptoms. There's no focus on health. There's no focus on healing. And I should say, even in the most naturopathic curriculums as well, we focus on the diseases. So it's really a totally different ballgame to focus on health and health promotion, and not just pinpointing the symptoms and managing the symptoms. And that.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, it's very well said. And as far as therapies that you've learned about through your training that really help create that optimal environment within your body, are there therapies that you feel that are very, very effective, but they're just not pushed really mainstream right off?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, nutrition, but that's I won't even, we can, without even focusing on nutrition, which is the therapy that we're most abusing, three times a day for most people, we're actually creating toxicity inside of our body instead of health. But aside from just the basics of, nutrition and lifestyle, one therapy that's really emphasized in naturopathic traditional medicine is the application of water to support the body in healing itself. And this is called hydrotherapy. And we're familiar with hydrotherapy. Most people use it or hear it in the context of colon hydrotherapy, which is, colonics or irrigating the colon. And that's totally not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about using applications of hot and cold water to simply create different dynamics of circulation in the body and to perfuse various organs and various systems, various body parts with circulation, because we know that where blood flows, energy goes, and where energy goes, healing happens. And that just speaks to the fact that the body is self-healing, and we just have to direct the self-healing capacities some time to the proper parts of the body. So one thing, that is, like you asked, something that's overlooked or not quite understood or used in our current society is the simple application of water.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So in that case, is there actually a device that allows that? Or are you just talking just as simple as get in cold water, get in hot water, like and having just
Yeah.
that temperature change to initiate blood flow?
Well, there's certainly various applications for specific conditions, whether it be a pneumonia or a sprained ankle or headache or anything like that. But in general, you spoke right to it, is just exposing the body to hot and cold water. So many people, every morning or every evening get in this hot shower, blast their body with hot water. And what that does is it brings all of the blood to the surface of the skin, and we're left with red skin, and our organs are actually kind of like, if you can think about it, they're kind of like drying out in the process. But if at the end of every shower, we simply put on the cold water for 10, 20, 30 seconds, as much as we can handle in any given day, which does change. Sometimes it is just like 5 or 10 seconds. But when we expose the body to cold water, all that blood that has gone to the skin goes right back to the core of the body to perfuse all the vital organs, the liver, the pancreas, the gallbladder, the heart. Everything gets this fresh dose of oxygenated, rich, nutrient-rich blood. And that is, talk about vitalizing. We experience the wakefulness aspect of that, like, whoa, that really felt good. But in terms of every other part of our body, it's just bringing life to the body.
No, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, I see so much with the cold shower, just the cold shower aspect of it. I mean, you look at people that do it on the extreme. What's his name?
Wim Hof.
Wim Hof, the Iceman, right? Like, but man, he's crazy, but it's effective. And
he's really popularized it, huh?
Yeah. Are you a fan of the extreme that he does that?
I'm totally a fan. In general, I'm totally a fan. I think it's great that he's bringing an awareness to how powerful it is. And he's got some studies that he's done. But it's important to know that, hey, like, he's doing it now in, 2019, but cold water has been used from the beginning of humanity, the beginning of time. If you look at, a deer or any sort of animal that gets hurt in any sort of way, it's going to hop into a cold river, a cold stream, and then it's going to be better. And that's because the cold water brings fresh circulation, fresh blood to the wound or the place in the body that needs healing.
No, that's super interesting. And yeah, for you guys listening, if it sounds super uncomfortable, because I know everybody gets in that comfort zone, right? It's like you're in the shower, it's nice and toasty, you can get out and put your PJs on and get nice and relaxed. But the more, because I haven't done it in a while. I'm going to take you up on it and start ending with the cold shower for a little stretch of time. But when I was doing it consistently, you really do notice a big difference with that. And it's just kind of getting out of that comfort zone. And then once you do it a few times, you kind of adapt to it, and it's not as bad as as you think, which I'm sure you've experienced that too.
Totally. And it's important to know, like we were talking about, the warm, blood is warm. And so the warm blood goes from the skin to the core of the body. So after we put cold water on our skin's going to be cold, but actually we have incredible amount of inner heat inside of the core of our body. And that is really what keeps us warm. So after you get out of your cold plunge or cold shower or whatever it may be, you're going to feel warm. And that's because you have this incredible amount of warm blood where it needs to be in the body.
Because of that, it actually makes you sleep better, right? Because I think some people are like, oh, I won't sleep if I'm like in cold water. But because of that warming effect, it actually makes you sleep better. Or did I make that up? Because I think...
No, you're totally correct. Maybe you were going to say this and I cut you off, but I recently, last year or so, saw a study about when we go to this is another reason why it's nice to keep your bedroom temperature on the cooler side, because I actually can't speak to exactly what happens scientifically, but essentially our body wants to be in a cool state when we're sleeping, and our body temperature rises over the course of the night, I believe.
No, that's amazing. I mean, I love all of that. Like, it's so interesting to me. And like, are there any therapies that besides that come to mind, or for you, is that like just the majority of what you really like to preach to people?
Oh, well, it's interesting because that's the first thing that came to mind when you asked that question. But to be honest, I'm not coaching people and telling people how to use water to heal themselves. I think it's in general like something that people should do throughout their day-to-day life. But the other real therapy, I guess you could call it, is that I really focus on is working in the realm of mind. And when I talking about the realm of mind, really what it comes down to is just showing people and pointing people towards the truth around how the mind works, which is really, we don't really understand that. I think in general, we're really confused where our thoughts come from, where our feelings come from. We sometimes, and if we don't know where our thoughts and feelings are coming from, then it's really easy to become stressed out, overwhelmed. It's really easy to feel like a victim of our life. So I really support people in kind of understanding the nature of their human experience. And through that, we know how a lot of people talk about the mind-body connection, and I even used that term before, but I think what we know much more so is the brain-body connection. And when the brain is, in a calm state, then our body is in a state that, is where healing is optimized. The parasympathetic nervous system is supported, our blood vessels are dilated, our circulation is moving as it should, our immune system is active, our digestive enzymes are, being secreted properly, and all these kind of things that are so important.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the power of the mind is just so incredible. I'm sure that you're somebody that follows Dr. Joe Dispenza as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I follow him. I'm very familiar with his work and what he's doing. And I haven't even read any of his books or anything, but I know he's doing incredible work at just raising awareness around how powerful our mind is.
Yeah, he's done some incredible work. One of the things that he's talked about, and it's probably talked about at a bunch of places, but it's like, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and like 90, basically all of them are very similar thoughts. So we create the same pattern in our lives day in, day out. And, those can be positive or negative, but just being aware of that and being aware that we have the same thought patterns day in, day out, and how that affects emotional health and how that kind of correlates to what we do physically. It's just it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of people nowadays are really focused on controlling thoughts, and whether it's through meditation practices or positive psychology, whatever it may be, that's generally not what I'm talking about with the people that I work with. I'm more pointing people towards just understanding the nature of mind and the nature of thought. And the nature of mind and thought is something that's completely fluid and completely out of our control. And thoughts have no substance until we choose to hold on to something. And then once we choose to hold on to something, then we can give ourselves the experience of a feeling or a symptom. And that's really where feelings come from. They come from our thoughts about our thoughts. We think about our thinking, and then we feel the result of that. And a lot of people say, oh, I feel anxious. Oh, I feel depressed. Oh, I feel overwhelmed. But they think that the anxiety is coming from their work, and they think that the depression is coming from a loss or a relationship, or the overwhelm is coming from their children or their family or whatever it is. But it's really, those feelings are coming from their thoughts around these situations. And we have such power to really shift our experience. And, once we shift our experience in the realm of emotions and the realm of feelings, then that completely, as we know, translates to the body. And like I said, people can be living in a fight or flight, it's classically sympathetic response where their immune system is suppressed and their blood sugar is high and their blood vessels are constricted, and they can't get themselves out of that. And they're so used to that as their baseline way of functioning. So I think it's so important to point people towards their natural inherent state of well-being, which I should say is, peace. It's calm, it's relaxation, it's healing. And we bring ourselves out of our natural state by using our, power of thought destructively rather than constructively. And, a lot of what it comes down to it is there's actually nothing that we have to do in the realm of mindfulness or meditation or positive thinking, because just like we talked about the body being a self-healing organism, you cut your hand or you cut your face shaving or something like that, and it heals within a day. The mind is also self-healing, self-regulating, self-balancing. And all we need to do is take a step back and let it do what it does, which is naturally find equilibrium, balance, peace. But all too often we are trying to fix things, because when we feel disturbed, we want to get out of that state of disturbance as fast as possible. So these are things that I talk about often with, patients and clients. And I think it's really important that we focus on this realm of holistic health, because I can come off my soapbox whenever, but the last thing I was going to say is just how there's so many, functional medicine practitioners, holistic health practitioners, nutritionists, whatever it may be, that are really focused on the mechanics of the body, the biochemistry, the labs, the pathogens, the toxicities, whatever it may be. But you talked about, earlier, toxic thoughts, which are just as destructive as any other toxicity in the body.
Absolutely. I mean, you could be eating the best food in the world, but have the worst thoughts in the world or the worst stress and anxiety, and you're killing yourself. And it's crazy and it's sad. I mean, it breaks my heart to see that in people, and to kind of, you were talking about just kind of shifting that experience, Dr. Benjamin. So if somebody came to you and they are ready to kind of learn more about how to process certain thoughts and not be so consumed by that, what are some of this? I know you don't want to give somebody an exact game plan because it could be different for everybody, but maybe what are some of the few tips that you may give somebody just to kind of shift that experience like you were talking about?
Yeah, I love that. Well, the great thing about it is it's actually not different for everybody. It's precisely the same for everybody. And all we have to do is not do. A lot of people are focused on doing, but we need to do less and be more. And when I say be more, I really mean be present, because in the present moment, all there is peace. All there is healing. That's all there is in any present moment. But if we're not in the present moment, we're thinking about the past, we're thinking about the future, whatever it may be, the thoughts take us out of the present moment, and then our body follows through constriction, tension, all the things that we know happen.
So how do you recommend that? Because in my mind, because it's very hard to stay in that present moment, because people obviously have their everyday lives. It's very impossible.
It's impossible.
It's constant, phone, kids, family, friend, all of that all the time. So, I mean, you probably, meditation is probably a huge recommendation.
Well, actually not. Actually, I generally don't advise people to meditate, because I think a lot of people use meditation as a crutch, to be honest with you. I think it can be a great tool to tonify the nervous system, to create a state of peace and resilience, which we can use as a reference point in our day-to-day life. But a lot of people meditate for an hour a day, and then they go into their life, and then, they get in a car accident, there's traffic, their kids, make a mess, and then they get stressed out. And it's like a lot of people say, oh, well, you just need to meditate more. And no, that's really not the answer. Really, the answer is understanding where the stress comes from. which comes from our thoughts of what's going on in the reality. We can't change anything in our outside world, but we can change the way that we think about everything. And, the most powerful example of this is in the, Nazi concentration camps, the story of Viktor Frankl, who, wrote his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he says that between stimulus and response, which there is a space, and in that space is the freedom to choose your response. So that speaks to the creative, empowered potential that we have as individuals. We can make the best, and that sounds totally cheesy and cliche, making the best out of what we're given. But I think that's really what it comes down to. And in terms of tips, which I think it is important to focus on kind of things to grasp. And one thing that I think is really important to grasp when we're talking about, what I would call this is like mind-body medicine or mind-body awareness or anything like that. But it's important to grasp that, I said before that our feelings come from our thoughts. So if we feel anxious, which is totally a natural human experience, to experience anxiety, to feel anxiety. Similarly with depression, similarly with any other of the rainbow of human emotions. These are all totally for us. The emotions are for us. They're not to fear, they're not to hide from, they're not to resist. But it's important to understand when we feel any range of emotion that is unpleasant, not a state of peace, anything at all, we can use that as kind of a barometer, a gauge, an indicator that our thoughts are a little out of alignment, and that's okay. But all we need to do is, if you consider like driving a car and you're turning the wheel and you hit the rumble strips, and the rumble strips is your emotionally disturbed feeling. And all you need to do is, if you think of like, let's use the analogy actually of a self-driving car, but you took the wheel and you turn this way and you go off the road and you feel the rumble strip. All you need to do is take your hands off the wheel, take your foot off the gas, and let your self-driving, self-regulating mind and body do what it does best. There's no need to fix it, to tweak it, to work it this way or that way, or do anything. But when we experience something that is emotionally uncomfortable, just sit back, create a little space, take a few breaths, and just let your body come back into its natural state of balance and peace, because that is our natural state. Just like the body's natural state is that of relaxation, healing, immune activation. So like I said, back to what I was saying before, less doing, less fixing, and more accepting, more being neutral, being just an observer of our experience. And I think that takes a lot of people a long way.
Right. Just kind of like a super heightened awareness then, right? And it's obviously going to get easier the more and more that you practice that, right?
Well, it's interesting. So it's actually kind of, to be honest with you, it's actually a little bit of a double-edged sword, because as we heighten our awareness, what that really means is we're heightening our sensitivity. So as people become more aware of the nature of their mind and their thoughts, their tolerance to stress, their tolerance to anxiety or discomfort actually lowers. So if you think about, back to the analogy of driving a self-driving car on a road, think of the road narrowing. So it doesn't take so much to feel stressed. It doesn't take so much to feel the rumble strips on the side of the road. And that, a lot of people think that the rumble strips are bad. They think that the feelings are bad. They don't want to feel the feelings. But what I say is that, hey, those rumble strips are keeping you on your road. Those feelings are keeping you aligned with your life. They're keeping you from going off the deep end and going, whatever it may be. They are for us. And people, I think it's important for people to have that relationship and understanding of, first of all, where their feelings come from and how feelings are actually not bad ever.
Right. No, and it's the same thing with, just the body as a whole, just being self-regulating. Symptoms aren't a bad thing. Symptoms are there to let you know something is wrong and to be aware of that and to make changes. And it's pretty similar to
Precisely.
Yes, to your thought process. No, I love that. I mean, I love that analogy too. Thank you for sharing that. And as far as, Dr. Benjamin, I know you do a lot with in the plant-based world as well. We both kind of do it. So
we haven't even gotten there, huh?
We haven't even gotten there. So, but I guess, how has that experience been for you, and how has it helped you through your journey of going this route in medicine? Because I know it's so tightly intertwined whenever you realize the connectivity between what you put in your body, the thoughts you have, and then obviously your overall health.
Totally. Our goal as holistic health practitioners is to, like we've talked about a number of times, support the body in healing itself. And how we do that is creating an environment in the mind and in the body that naturally allows for the body to heal itself. And in terms of, shifting from mind to body, in terms of the environment inside the body, the only real way to optimize the environment in the body to promote health is on a plant-based diet. I mean, there's plenty of nitty-gritty research and science that points in that direction. And a lot of people argue, oh yeah, but a little bit of grass-fed meat, or yeah, some free-range eggs, or, but fermented cheese, whatever it is. It's like, yeah, those things, may be better than the conventional alternative. But if we're really focusing on nutrient density, I love the work that Dr. Joel Fuhrman does. Health equals nutrition over calories, or nutrients over calories. What that means is that every time we put food in our mouth, we have an opportunity to, increase the amount of nutrients in our system. So why not choose the most nutrient dense foods on the planet, which are plants, which come from the earth? Absolutely.
And have you always been plant-based, or like what made you decide to go that route?
Yeah, well, this is, another big story topic, but we'll condense it. Essentially, before medical school and everything, I was studying holistic nutrition just because I like to keep myself busy, I guess. And in my program, we were encouraged to experiment with nutrition, given, I also like this idea that our bodies are kind of a laboratory and we can run these experiments. And so I was running experiments in my body, and I found that the more I eliminated and the better I felt. And, before too long, I was like full on raw vegan, and I felt great, but only for a few months. And I was, before too long, I became really depleted, really deficient. And I thought I was lacking something. I started eating more, grounding, whole, cooked foods, and, more, diversifying my diet, I guess you could say. But I still didn't feel that great. And then in naturopathic medical school, I think in my second year most people in that program, in that kind of profession, really are more on the paleo side of things than anything. Someone made me bone broth, and I drank bone broth, and I felt great. I felt like, whoa, what was I missing? I must be, one of these kind of persons that needs meat. And then I, slowly incorporated some, maybe like every week or so, I started eating meat. And when I met Susanna, her and she was also more of a meat eater than I was. So we would continue eating meat. And I was feeling good. But then I kind of started to feel depleted again. And I went to a naturopathic doctor, got some blood work done. And it turned out I was, anemic. And I thought, oh, well, that means I need to eat more meat, right? And my doctor actually said, yeah, you probably should eat more meat. But I didn't. But my wisdom, my intuition led me a different way. Rather than eating more meat, I started to just eat more food in general. And I think that is such a huge shortcoming for people who are on a whole food plant-based diet, to simply not get enough nutrients, to simply not get enough calories. Because when we look at, a pound of broccoli versus a pound of steak, the steak is going to have like 10 times more calories. and the steak is going to give you that much more energy. But it's not the broccoli's fault that it's not as calorically dense. You just need to eat more broccoli. Or
Right.
that's when I started incorporating more potatoes, more whole grains, more legumes, kind of these foods that get they develop this bad reputation as, dietary trends evolve, and, people are afraid of carbohydrates and things like that. And I think that on some level I had a fear of carbohydrates a little bit. So I lost that fear. I started eating whole foods, and in the process started eliminating. I never really loved eating meat or anything. It was just like something that I did. So for about 2.5 years or so, I've been, full on whole food, plant-based. And I think the trick, as I, convey with everybody, is eating enough.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I see that so often. It's like people will make that switch, feel good for a few days, or just be like, man, I'm so hungry. I don't feel good. This must not be what's right for my body. But almost every single time, it's just like you said, you're just not getting enough calories to meet the energy demands. And especially if you're working out, then you're probably more than likely definitely not meeting those demands. And I also love that you brought up the fear of carbs, because I saw that for myself, Dr. Benjamin. It's like because for a while I was on, like, just years ago, like the keto, really just cutting out carbs. And I remember feeling awful, and I couldn't get it to the weight that I wanted to be at. I was sick all the time. But then once I just let that go, weight dropped off. Like, the fact that I've been at the weight that I've really wanted to be at for a long time, and I eat more carbs, like healthy carbs, than I ever have. I've seen it for myself. So it's so cool to see people that have feared like whole grains or potatoes or like things like that for so long, but you can do it in the right way. It's just it's pretty cool.
Yeah. 100%. We're on the same page there.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And so with you're doing an incredible job. Obviously, you see clients, and then you also have your own podcast. So you want to talk about what really inspired that?
Yeah, thank you. My podcast is called Alter Your Health, which, my last name is Alter, A-L-T-E-R.
Very convenient.
So that worked out. And what inspired that? Well, to be honest, I've always felt a little like I'm holding myself back, like I'm not sharing my voice. And I was typically always the person that sat in the back of the class and very rarely raised his hand to speak up, even though I really had something to say. And similarly, I've always thought that, I've always admired all the cool people in the world who are speaking up and doing great jobs. And I thought, you know what? I want to share more. I want to connect with all of these amazing people, have awesome conversations like this one. And I just want to do that more. And it absolutely was not a natural, comfortable sort of thing to initiate, but there was enough enthusiasm and inspiration to just get over the hurdle of self-doubt and self-sabotage and just get it up and running. So it's been, out there for, I guess, about maybe 8 or 9 months now. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And it's a great way to connect with people like you and, collaborate and share, insightful conversations. And this, this culture that we're living in, where people have access to such incredible information at their click of a button, is just phenomenal. And I think also overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming. But I think that there's a lot of great stuff out there. And, it's just my intention to add to the goodness through the podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. The possibility to connect with so many people, and the community is a very, very great one, which I'm sure you've seen that through the last 8 or 9 months through your podcast, just how incredible the plant-based community is. So it's so great. And you also use the brand that you have with coaching as well, right? So do you want to kind of talk about what you guys offer? Because it's you and your wife that do the coaching, right?
Yeah. We work with people one-on-one for sure. And another thing that we're so enthusiastic about nowadays is more of a group community building coaching sort of thing. So we've got a weekly group coaching call that takes place on Zoom, and We just have conversations around all topics, mind, body, and supporting people in their plant-based nutrition and also their thoughts and their mindset and just understanding how the mind works. And the conversations are always great, and we're able to see people's faces and hear their voices. And, for people who can't tune in live, we've got this, archived library of content. And it's just a lot of fun to, invite people into community, because let's face it, like one-on-one doctor services, health services, they can be expensive and inaccessible for people. And what we always like to emphasize is, when it comes down to it, most people, I hope this isn't bad for your business or mine, but most people don't need help. Most people just need a little fine-tuning, fine-tweaking, inspiration, guidance, because we know, like we've kind of spoken to throughout this conversation, we all have the answers within ourselves. There's nothing that the doctor has that you don't have, except for 4 years of education and a lot of debt, probably.
Right.
But you don't want that. We don't want that. So, the doctor doesn't have anything except for maybe some tools and tricks up their sleeve. But when it comes to the healing, basic, simple applications of health promoting lifestyle, that's something we all have. And we all need to awaken to that truth inside of us.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And for the people that do want to check out his group class, even though we all do have the answers, right? But if you do want to check out Dr. Benjamin's class, I'll put the link in the bio, and I definitely recommend that you guys check that out. So, what do you have planned for the future that maybe we haven't talked about so far? Something that you just want to put out there and share?
The future. Well, I'm planning to continue all the things that I'm doing. And like we talked about before we started recording, I just moved to beautiful Carbondale, Colorado, which is in the Rocky Mountains, and settling in here, calling this place home, and starting to offer home visits in the vicinity of where I live. So getting into people's homes and supporting people in their lifestyle changes and healing from chronic disease and ailments. And me and Susanna also do, which is something that we're just kind of lifting off the ground and we're excited about, is we're offering immersive experiences for people who just want to totally overhaul their homes, their lives,
cool.
Their whole family. And we'll, travel to people and go in for a couple of days to just really have an intensive and have a lot of fun in the process, and hopefully come out feeling, rejuvenated and inspired. Because I think a lot of people, we're in this culture of, taking vacations to relax. And as great as it is to travel and vacate and put your feet on the sand and stuff like that, I really intend to support people in understanding how their life can kind of be a vacation if they orient and structure it in such a way. And I like to show people that kind of hands-on.
I love that. No, that's incredible. And Dr. Benjamin, what is the best way for people to follow you on social media? That way they can keep up with all of your coaching, and then as well as obviously experiences like that.
Yeah, so I would say I'm most active on Instagram, probably at Dr. Benjamin Alter. And also we've got a Facebook, I think it's at Alter Health, INC Incorporated. And my email and the practice email is info@alter.health. So the website is alter.health. There's no .com or anything. And that's great ways to connect.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll put all of that in the show notes. That way people can just go click and give you an ad. And Dr. Benjamin, just closing question that I ask every guest.
Goody.
Yes. So if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's something that's been your biggest takeaway on your own health wellness journey so far. But if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
Oh boy. Well, I think really the most powerful point of leverage in health and in life in general is just to be at peace with the human experience. And I think we all resist things, whether it's symptoms, whether it's feelings, whether it's dis-ease of any sort. And if we can just learn to be at peace with it a little bit more, then we can see the miraculous magic trick that the universe invariably plays, which is that our feelings, that our symptoms, they naturally dissolve. They naturally loosen up and we can live our lives. And I think that we need to do more living of life rather than, focusing on all the things that are bad. So on that note, another tip is just being grateful, just being grateful for the human experience, all the ups and downs, the wild ride that it is. I think gratitude is the most important practice, if it is a practice, which I think it is, that we can all kind of cultivate and work on in our lives.
Absolutely. No, that's perfect, Dr. Benjamin. And just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I loved having you, and just thank you for all of the work you do. I really loved having you on the show.
Dr. Casey, likewise, I feel honored and blessed to have this conversation. It was a great one.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Dr. Benjamin. He's doing so much positive work, so be sure to give him a follow on social media to keep up with everything that he's been working on. You can find his social media links that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drcaseyjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, website, all of that. So all of Dr. Benjamin's information can be found on my site as well. If you guys loved today's episode with Dr. Benjamin, be sure to jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate all of the feedback and support. Thank you guys so much again for tuning into today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.